Welcome back to your go-to solo lawn care business owner podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Sutter. Thanks for tuning in. Today, I want to talk to you guys about knowing your overhead costs, knowing all of the stuff that goes into that so that you can figure out your break-even point. So, guys, I am driving today. If you didn't know, I am a solo lawn care business owner, and I also, in the off-season, drive for something called Walmart Spark. And so that's what I'm going out to do right now. And so I apologize if you're watching this on YouTube or Rumble or wherever you're watching this. I apologize that I'm not looking at the camera. I have to look at the road. So, guys, thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate it. So today, I really want to dive into how to calculate your break-even cost. Because a lot of guys, from just talking with a lot of people that are in this business, and usually it is solo business owners, they don't really know what their break-even cost is or their break-even point is for making money. And it's super important for pricing your lawn care. If you don't know whether you're making a profit or not, how can you run a profitable business? And so I want to go through all the things you got to do, which it's pretty simple, really. You just need to know your business, okay? So it's easy to calculate the break-even cost, and we're going to go through that here. Guys, if you're new here, make sure that you go up into the right-hand corner of Apple Podcasts or whatever platform you're listening to this on and click that follow button or the subscribe button. It just helps this channel so much. Also, click that like button on whatever platform you're hearing this on, because that also really helps get this podcast into more people's ears. So, the first thing that we need to do when we are calculating our break-even point, we got to know our costs. Guys, I'm really sorry for all the shakiness. Michigan roads are really bad, and my holder here in the car is not great either. So I really apologize for that. Hopefully it doesn't come through too shaky on the video. I really hope so. But if it does, I'm sorry. This is how I have to do it right now. So, the break-even point, calculating it. Sorry, I get distracted when I'm driving and trying to make these episodes. It's difficult, but we're gonna make it happen. We're gonna make it happen today. So, what you need to do first, you need to know your overhead costs. What is overhead? What's overhead? Overhead is all your expenses in your business, including your salary. If you're not paying yourself a salary, you're not really running a business. If you're just taking home what's left over, that is not how a business is run. What is left over is the profit. And even that doesn't have to be left over. You can calculate that into your overhead cost as well. Now, for this episode, we're not doing that. We're just going to calculate the expenses of the business and then calculate our break-even point, okay? Now, if you really want to get technical, you can add that profit into your break-even point so that you know for sure that you're profitable. But for today's episode, we're going to leave that off, okay? So, what you need to do is you need to figure out all of your overhead costs. What are your overhead costs? All your overhead costs are equipment maintenance, payments on mowers, payments on trucks, maintenance on your trucks and trailers and all that stuff. All of that. Your insurance, your pay, like we said before, your pay or your employees' pay. A whole bunch of other stuff. All your subscriptions for your business, like QuickBooks, or for me, in my media business, it would be my subscription to my podcast hosting, right? All of that stuff, no matter what it is, down to the minutest detail, all right? You gotta, it didn't say nudist, as in take off all your clothes. I mean minute, okay? All right, I made myself laugh. You probably didn't understand or get it. That's okay. I'm a weirdo. Anyway, so down to the last detail. Everything, all the expenses. If you have not been tracking your expenses, that is a big problem to running a profitable business, because you can't run a profitable business until you know how much you're spending. You have to know how much you're spending. Now, sure, you might have Forrest Gumped your way into a profitable business. That can happen. I've done that. But you need to know. Why do you need to know? Because if you want to sell your business one day, the people that are going to buy your business want to know if you're profitable. And you can't know if you're truly profitable unless you know your expenses. And along with that, you won't know how to increase your profit by cutting expenses unless you track your expenses. That's where something like WaveApps comes in, or QuickBooks. You can't just put all your expenses, your receipts in a box and take them to your tax preparer and say, here you go, do my taxes. Don't do that, because you don't know your expenses. Sure, you could see it on a tax form. Great, whatever. Don't do that. You need to track it. You need to see what you're spending. In WaveApps, you can set it up so you can track what you spent at a certain gas station or at a certain store or your dealer. You can see all the money you spent there this year or in the last calendar year, whatever. That is super helpful when you're trying to cut expenses. And you need to look at all your expenses and go through them with a fine-tooth comb and see what you can cut. The leanest business is going to be the most profitable business, right? So you got to know what you're spending. There are so many companies out there, solo guys especially, who don't really know what they're spending. They go out to eat every single day for lunch, and they buy water, or they stop at the gas station, and they don't know what all that adds up to. And it adds up to a lot. Let me tell you. You can spend thousands of dollars at your gas station making that one stop a day. You've got to know what you're spending. And not only that, you will know when you track your expenses. That helps you know, hey, this is, I should be getting a bunch of write-offs on this stuff because I'm tracking all of it. It's all right here, right? So don't take that box of receipts to your tax person. Put it in the software so you have it for year after year after year, and you can look back on it and see your business getting healthier. All right? It's super important. That's just the first step, calculating your overhead costs, knowing exactly what you're spending every single year. Then what you do, now there's a formula to this, and I have it written down here, and as I'm driving, it's hard to think about that. So I'm just now getting off my exit here, so we'll see if I can tell you what that formula is. So the first thing you want to do is you want to take your overhead or your expenses and divide them by how many lawns you have currently. How many lawns you have currently. We're not forecasting here. This is how many lawns we have. Right? And this is probably because we're going into a new year. If you've never done this before, but you've had your business for a year or more, you can do this. Take your expenses, all of your overhead, divided by how many lawns you have. Okay, now that does not give you your break-even number. Okay, that just shows you the total amount that you have spent per lawn per year. Okay, that's it. Now, what I want you to do is take that number, so the number that we just got after we divided, then you want to take that number and divide it by the amount of cuts you do every year. That means every lawn, adding up every lawn, how many cuts do you get every season? You get, we get about 28. So you're going to take the number of lawns and you're going to multiply that by 28. Okay? That will give you your total number of cuts per season. All right? And then you're going to take that, the number that we got from our overhead, dividing that by the number of lawns, and we are going to, let me look at my formula here. You got to see it. Where is it? Okay, so we got what we got from overhead divided by lawns. Then we're going to take that number and we're going to divide that by the total lawn cuts, and that gives you your break-even number per lawn, per cut, right? So that will tell you how much you need to charge per lawn just to break even. That doesn't include your profit. So that's your number, right? And I will put the formula in the description below so that you don't have to like listen to this over and over again. The formula will be down in the description below. Now this is where something like EARTHAPRO can come in. So if you didn't know, I'm sponsored by EARTHAPRO, and they have a little calculator on their dashboard, and you have to calculate like your overhead, of course, and you have to put in the number of lawn cuts. But you type those two things in and it will spit out your break-even number per lawn, right? And so my break-even number is $38.70 per lawn. Now, when I did this in the EARTHAPRO software on the dashboard there, what I noticed is that I have 1 or 2 lawns that are below my break-even point, which means what? That means I'm losing money on those lawns. I'm losing money. That's where your break-even number comes in, right? I'm not making money on it, right, which would be profit. I am losing money. I'm basically paying them to mow their lawn. That is very helpful information. You need to know that. And so that's where you can determine, okay, I need to raise that price just to break even. Just to break even on that lawn. Now, there is a caveat to this, because you're going to have higher priced lawns. They're not all going to be the same price. Some of your lawns, you will be over that break-even mark, right? And so sometimes you can cover those lower priced lawns, right? Because maybe you have a lawn that takes you 5 minutes, right? And honestly, it's going to be really hard to get $38.70 for a 5-minute lawn. It's going to be hard to charge for, at least in my area. Not a lot of people are going to go for that. So your other lawns can cover that shortfall, right? But that's not what we want to do. We don't want to do that. We want to have every lawn be profitable. That means it has to be above our break-even mark. So the rule of thumb that you really want to shoot for is 20% profit in the lawn care business. That's super good. That is a super high profit margin in the lawn care business. Okay? Most lawn care businesses run between 8 and 10%. The high end is like 15%. So you want to shoot for that 20%. You want to shoot for the fences. I mean, you got to really swing for the fences on that number. You want to be as profitable as possible in your business. So that means 2 things. All right? You've got to cut down expenses. I've got to cut expenses this year. I cannot be spending that much money, so I want to cut that. But I'm going to go by last year's break-even point, which means if I cut expenses, that means my profit margin goes up without having to raise prices. Okay, now you can raise prices, and I would encourage you to do that. I need to raise prices on several of my lawns because they're not profitable. So I need to raise that price. And that's just what you have to do sometimes. But you have to be sure that you are above that break-even point for every single lawn. It's common sense, right? That's the way you're going to be the most profitable in your business. And there's a lot of guys out there, like I said before, that are not. They don't even know that number. They don't know that they have a break-even mark, that they might not be making money because they're way below what they're spending. And you have to know that number. It's the best way to run a lawn care business is to know, not guess, to know what your break-even point is, which means everybody's price is different. Everybody's price has to be different because if you're pricing what Joe Schmo down the street is charging, he might have very low expenses. He might be using a push mower to mow his lawns, and he's charging $50 a cut. His expenses are way lower than your expenses. You can't charge what Joe Schmo down the street is charging because your expenses are way higher. You have to know what your break-even mark is, because if you don't, you're just going to be floating out there in the wind, and you're going to just happen upon profit. You're not going to know what your profit margin is. You're just taking a stab in the dark. And I'm telling you, I've done it, right? I spent the first 3 or 4 years doing that in my business until I heard a podcast or a YouTube video by John Pajak. John Pajak has a podcast. It's called Profits with Pajak. Go check it out. It's a great podcast. I think you'll really like it. There's a lot of value there. Probably the most valuable podcast in the green industry right now, which that's a strong statement. It's more powerful than mine, I'll tell you that, because he knows how. He's a teacher. First of all, he teaches. He's been an actual teacher, and he's very good at it, and he can explain things very well. And so if you're struggling to run your business, go listen to that podcast, because he makes it simple. He simplifies it, and it's really good. You should go check it out. Also, if you want a CRM to help you track what you're making, take credit card payments and all that stuff, check out EARTHAPRO. That's in the description below. You can get 25% off your first year of Pro if you use my code MowingInTheDark25. But overall, that's what I wanted to talk about today. Let me look at my notes here. So yeah, none of your lawns should be below that mark. Sorry, I've got a lot of notes today. I think I hit everything. So yeah, you've got to know your break-even point. I know this is a short episode, and I'm sorry about that, but you really need to know that break-even point. And this was what I really wanted to talk about today as we're going into the new season. Guys don't know what their break-even number is. And if you don't know it, it's really hard to charge because you're just guessing. When you know your break-even point, then you can add 20% on top of that, and that's what you need to charge per lawn. Now, what would be really simple is if all your lawns were the same size, relatively speaking. That would be really simple. When you have a varying size of lawn like I do, I mow acreage and I mow small lawns. So that means I've got to change up a little bit. And so my break even, I actually calculate that more per hour rather than per lawn. So because if you don't, you have no idea what to charge for that acreage. And so for me, I have to kind of price per hour instead of per lawn. If all your lawns are small, relatively speaking, half acre to 3/4 acre lots, like city lots, this becomes really easy because you can calculate that number very simply. But for me, or a business like mine where you have a splattering of different kinds of properties, it becomes a little bit more difficult and a little bit more nuanced. And so you really have to know your numbers. You have to look at what you need to charge. You got to know that break-even point. And then you can calculate, you can add that profit on top, 20%. And you might find out by doing this that you spent so much money that you were spending, your break-even number is at $50 a cut. And you're mowing half-acre lots, right? Which isn't bad, but that $50 a cut, you're not making any profit on that. That's your break-even. So now you got to add 20% on top of that to make a 20% profit. And so now your price has to be up higher, a lot higher. You're probably going to be around, what would 20% be? You'd be around $60. You'd be around $60. You would be at $60 per cut, which isn't terrible. But in my area, you're not getting a half-acre lawn for $60 a cut. Nobody's going to pay that here. So you have to cut your expenses. You have to cut that down. And you really have to look at all your equipment, how much gas your equipment is using, how much you're paying on insurance, how much you're paying employees. Maybe you got to cut some of the employees off. And maybe you have to get rid of some of those low-paying lawn clients and just cut them off, fire them, and almost build a new business where you're at that new price. And it's hard. It's hard. But once you know, that empowers you to go after those higher dollar lawns. And you can be profitable because that profit helps you buy all sorts of things. Now, along with in your expenses, you need to add in things like new equipment, new trucks, new trailers, all that stuff. You got to add that in. That's part of your break even. Or at least it should be. And so that profit, you want that so you can take that home at the end of the year. That's what you want. Now, I follow a profit first method, so I actually take my profit on a quarterly basis. But since I moved, I haven't done that because I'm putting a lot of money back into the business with trying to get new clients and things like that. But with my old business in Lansing, that's what I did. And it worked really well. So you just have to know that break-even point. And then go from there and start adding the profit on top. And once you know that, man, it's really good. Then you can run a really good, profitable business that makes you money. So guys, that's it for this episode. I know it was kind of a short episode, but thanks so much for listening. Make sure you leave a rating and review for the podcast if you got value out of this. And make sure, again, you hit that follow button. Share this with your friends. Share it on your social media. Share it with your lawn care buddies or whatever so that they know their break-even point too. All right, guys, thanks for listening and watching, and I will see you in the next episode.